Hello, lifters and listeners. Welcome back to the Lift Her Up podcast. I am your host, Latrice. Listen, I have been enjoying the feedback from you guys about this Archetype series. It's really been giving me life. I'm so glad that you guys are enjoying it. And if I can give a little bit of a backstory, I was not really confident about this series at first. It was an idea that the Lord gave me, and I was a little nervous and hesitant about it because I'm like, oh, this is different. How am I going to tie this all into, the theme of the show and making sure that I'm saying all the things that he wants me to say, and obviously making sure that the Bible is infused in it because that's what we are built on here. But I'm really glad that you guys have enjoyed it, and that is just a testament of being obedient to the Lord, staying true to what He said to you. Even though it may look interesting or funny or weird, or you don't know how it's going to play out, right? But I have been enjoying how it's playing out, the reception that I've gotten from you guys, the comments, the love, all of that. So make sure that you continue to stay tuned. We are almost at the end of the series and the season. Next week or our next episode is going to be our final archetype, and it will be our last little bit of wrapping up this archetype series in this season. But that's not here yet. We almost there, but we're not quite there yet. And I have found myself doing my own reflecting on this series, and specifically my own friendships, my own friendship history over the years, and who I was back then versus who I am now, and how I show up compared then to now. And I really just wanted to share a bit of a personal story that's going to lead us into this next archetype. So when I was in college, I had this group of friends, and it was about 7 of us, okay? And again, thinking back, I'm a different person now than I was then. And have you ever just been like, what was I thinking? You're like, what was I doing? Why did I say and do those things? But we just have to show compassion and grace to ourselves, right? But moving along, one of the friends in this group, she was very much the one that kind of like brought everyone together. She didn't like it when people in our group were at odds, or when people were fighting, when they were arguing. And when people were on the outs, or when the group chat went silent, she was the one, without even thinking about it, would look for ways for us to come together and talk things out, or just for us to fellowship in general, right? And even when this group, when most of us grew apart, eventually she always attempted to keep some form of relationship with various people in the group, even though our friend group as a whole was no longer, like, it was no longer present and no longer like an active friendship. And I was thinking about that friend as I was preparing for this episode, and I thought about the role that she played in our friend group at that time, but also in my life. And I realized that I really took for granted a lot of the qualities that she had, because I remember thinking at the time, like, girl, like, why do you care? Like, why do you want everybody to get along so bad? Like, why does this really even matter? We're not going to see the same page on all this. But I've come to realize now that she wasn't just being personable. She was actually being a peacemaker. And that is who we are going to talk about today, the Peacemaker Friend. This episode is dedicated to the Peacemaker Friend. All right, that's what we'll be impacting. That's what we'll be unpacking. We are going to be talking about who she is, personified, not a specific person. That was just a story that I wanted to bring in just to talk about it. But who the Peacemaker Friend is, what she does. If it's you, if you have those characteristics, If you're the person who's like always smoothing things over, holding the group together, making sure that nobody is on the outs for too long, making sure everyone feels like they belong and seen, or maybe you have someone in your life who's like that, and maybe you've never had the words to describe how they've been and how she does what she does. But either way, this episode is for you. And we are going to talk about again who the peacemaker friend really is, what their gift is, the story, and what it truly looks like for them to walk in the fullness of their gifting, because it really is a gift. So, the peacemaker. The peacemaker has an almost supernatural ability to read the tension in a room and immediately begin diffusing it. People are naturally drawn to them because they listen to understand, not to respond and not to win, but actually to hear what the other person is saying. They are able to see multiple perspectives at once and hold them with compassion, which makes them a natural bridge builder. They're often gentle, diplomatic, and they reflect God's heart for reconciliation because He is all about that. And they are often the reason that relationships survive in very tough seasons. So again, even thinking about my college friend, right? Like when there are hard times, she will be the one that would pull us together. So how does the peacemaker show up? They're the ones that checks on everybody after conflict, not for gossip, okay, but to restore the relationship. They smooth over awkward moments, they find common ground in disagreements, and they keep the friend or the group dynamics afloat. They value unity very deeply, and they are quick to soothe over situations, sometimes before they've even processed the issue at hand themselves. So when you have a peacemaker friend, what is their presence like? Oftentimes they're described as somebody who is safe, calm, unjudged. They don't judge or unjudged. They don't feel judged when they talk to them. This kind of overlaps with our therapist friend a little bit. I see a lot of the same attributes, but it's people often say that I just feel better after talking to this person. They just carry a sense of peace with them. And this peace isn't fully theirs, it's the fruit of the spirit that's working within them, right? And this is the heart of this episode, helping the peacemaker understand why they are the way they are with compassion and truth, of course. The peacemaker, their gift, let's talk about some underlying wounds and possible trauma that might be there. The gift for peacemakers, it often is not from a peaceful place, a peaceful environment, or childhood. Often they learned how to be the peacemaker, as a lot of our archetypes do, because peace wasn't the default in their environment. They may have grown up in a home where tension was constant, and perhaps between like their parents or any sort of family dynamics where emotions were volatile or maybe they were unpredictable. And without realizing it, they became that thermostat in the room, adjusting themselves to lower the temperature of everything that was going around them. Talking about some common wounds that we can see in the peacemaker are parentification or emotional caretaking. They could have been responsible for other people's emotions from a young age. Conflict heavy environments, again, growing up in environments of arguments, instability, emotional chaos. They were taught that conflict equals danger, but peace equals safety, right? Conditional love or belonging. I identify with this one a lot. So they may have learned that their value came when things were smooth, when they were mediating a situation, so to speak, or when they kept quiet about something, or when they didn't cause any problems or cause any trouble. Another is being dismissed or silent. I identify with this one as well. Their voice may have been talked over as a child, or maybe they were mocked or teased or bullied, or their voice was treated as unimportant. Their perception, their views were perceived as unimportant, and it caused them to internalize the belief that speaking up just wasn't worth the cost. And the last one I want to mention is witnessing relational rupture. This is big. So when you watch as a child or growing up a friendship a marriage or family members fall apart relationally, that may have left a residual deep fear of conflict because you feel that there could be a permanent loss attached to it, like you've witnessed growing up. And the internal lie that the peacemaker may believe is, if I say what I really think, then I'll lose relationships, right? If it might be better if I just stay quiet, keep the peace for Pete's sake, and not be honest and risk everything. So sharing for them, sharing what they truly feel, their emotions, it's like a disrupting to what's going on, and they would prefer to stay quiet than to risk what's going on. Now this is when there's like an unhealthy side of our peacemakers. And a lot of times in our adult friendships, this can look like avoiding necessary hard conversations when they are truly hurt, agreeing when you don't really agree just to keep things smooth, feeling like they always had to manage everyone else's feelings before their own, a deep exhaustion from carrying emotional labor others don't even know that they're carrying, and resentment that quietly builds because they're not as honest as they need to be. Okay. So again, this is a gift. The ability to keep and to hold peace, peacemaking, that is a gift that the Lord gives us, and that is real. The capacity for peace is also given by God. It's from God. But when it's rooted in something that's not of God, that's when we need to pay attention. So when it's rooted in survival and not security, it can become a cage instead of a calling. And God does want us to deal and heal with those wounds, that so that they can flow. Our gift can flow from a place of peace and not of fear. And it can come from a place of love. Now, my favorite part, we got to look at the Bible, okay? So let's go to 1 Samuel 25. We're going to be talking about Abigail. Abigail is an amazing biblical character who I think embodies the peacemaker perfectly. And we see both aspects of the peacemaking, the gift and the cost of making peace. Okay, so just to give a background, you can go and read it on your own time. 1 Samuel 25. But Abigail is married to Nabal. Nabal is a foolish man. That's literally what his name means, fool. Foolish and a very harsh man. Okay, so this is the time of David. And David and his men, they come requesting provisions from Nabal and his household. This was not some crazy request that David was making. It was just him asking as they were on their journey, and Nabal insults them and he refuses to give them their provisions. Who is this David? Who is this son of Jesse? Who is Jesse? Y'all got to go read it. But David is furious, and if you know anything about David was about that life, okay? And he is intent on destroying Nabal and his whole household. Everything about to go down. And if you know about David, listen, he will get to it. He will get to it. But Abigail, without Nabal's knowledge, she hears about what David is about to do. A servant tells her. So she goes and gathers food and supplies. She intercepts when David is about to go and demolish Nabal, and she speaks words to him out of wisdom, out of peace, and it single-handedly shifted this bloodbath situation that was going to be had. All right, David literally says that she kept him from bloodshed. Listen, 1 Samuel 25 verses 32 through 33. Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, who sent you this day to me. And blessed be your discernment, and blessed be you who have kept me this day from bloodshed. Okay? Like, she literally turned the wrath of David, and that is no easy feat. So based on that verse, we see these qualities that Abigail had. She was discerning. She didn't panic like, oh Lord, my husband has he's about to get us all destroyed. Let me just like lie down, right? She didn't panic. She assessed the situation and she acted with wisdom. She intercepted him, like I said, going to David, appealing to his better nature. She was diplomatic and eloquent. So her words to him were measured. They were humble, and strategic, honestly. She carried others' weight. Obviously, she stepped in to fix the mess that her husband made. She didn't make it. And she operated in a hostile environment. So Nabal is described as harsh and foolish. So she likely lived with chronic tension in her household. This is literally peacemaking 101, right? But notice that Abigail, she was trapped. Her peacemaking wasn't optional, it was actually her survival. She was trying to survive. Imagine as a woman back then, I'm not going to pause and talk about it, but this was her way of trying to survive, to get around her foolish husband. So she had to navigate his difficulty, an explosive situation that could have ended up terribly, and a powerful man's rage. Hey, David. So many peacemakers will recognize something in Abigail. You're doing extraordinary work in an impossible situation. You often feel unseen and you often go without thanks. Yeah, that happens a lot. But God saw Abigail. After Nabal died, y'all go read about how he died. Jesus. David sent for her. God didn't leave her in that environment forever. Her wisdom and integrity opened the door that she couldn't have opened herself, right? And her gift was honored, but God had to be the one to do the releasing. I love that. I love that story. And here's another biblical angle for us to look at and consider. Jesus, of course, I had to talk about Jesus. He's the ultimate peacemaker, all right? Colossians 1:20 tells us how he made peace through the blood of his cross. So he didn't keep peace by avoiding. He kept peace through sacrifice and through truth. He reconciled us to himself so that we could have peace. I also wanted to note that Jesus was the perfect peacemaker. Y'all know that I will give you perfect peace. Ain't that what the word says? It's because he taught us that to live in peace doesn't mean to live without conflict. And it also does not mean to live passively. There's a difference between being a peacemaker and being passive. Okay? There's a difference between being a peacemaker and being a people pleaser. There's a difference between being a peacemaker and a peacekeeper. Let's talk about it. What's the difference between godly peacemaking and conflict avoidance because of fear? That is rooted in fear. Peacemaking is speaking truth gently, staying present even when it's hard, and it brings people together in an authentic way around something that is real. Peacekeeping, however, is managing the surface tension at the expense of your own voice, your own needs, and sometimes even your own integrity. People pleasing. Let's pause there for a second. What are some signs that we might be leaning into people pleasing? If you are agreeing with things that you don't agree with to avoid friction, it's a no-no. Apologizing automatically. Oh, I'm sorry. We be like that, especially as women. We just apologize even when we don't do anything wrong. Even when we don't do anything wrong. Next is feeling physically anxious when someone is upset with you. This is a big one. Some people literally can't stomach the idea of being in opposition with someone. I could go on about that, but I'll move on there. Struggling to hold your position when pushed back on, even when you know you're right. So even when you know that you have made a point, or even we can't really argue experience, right? But when someone seeks to invalidate your experience, you don't even push back on that. Or maybe you know that the Lord has told you something, or you know something is true that he said, and you don't push back on those things that are true. You're You're just holding, you're struggling to hold what you believe is true in your heart. And lastly is finding yourself mediating conflicts that you weren't invited into because you can't tolerate tension, even when it isn't yours to fix. This one is good, and this one got me. I feel like growing up, there's a lot of people who inserted themselves into other people's business that had nothing to do with them. And a lot of times it was people being a bit nosy and whatnot. But I do think a lot of that kind of trickles into our adulthood too, where it's like we can't help but try to mediate and mend things that absolutely have nothing to do with us. And again, it could be that we just want everyone to get along, and we feel that any conflict that we face or that is faced by people around us that are close to us, or that ultimately means that we are unsafe. And that's not necessarily true. But over time, the peacemaker who never speaks up will feel overlooked, exhausted, and quietly resentful. The relationships you even work so hard to build and that you work so hard for, people might not even really feel like they know you because you've been managing them instead of actually showing up authentically in them. And you cannot truly connect with someone who is always curating themselves for your comfort. I'll say that again. You cannot truly connect with someone who is always curating themselves for your comfort, right? Proverbs 27:6 says, "Faithful are the wounds of a friend, profuse are the kisses of an enemy." Real friendship sometimes requires an honest word and not just a smooth one. Okay. So when the peacemaker friend is anchored in God's peace and not their own management, it looks a little different. And let me tell you some things that they exude, what their life looks like, what a healthy peacemaker looks like. They no longer have to manufacture peace. They carry it because they are consistently returning to the presence of God. They can walk into tension without needing to immediately fix it. Next, they speak truth with gentleness, not instead of it. The healthy peacemaker knows that real love requires honest words. They've learned that a kind and well-placed truth is more loving than years of comfortable silence. Sometimes we have to speak up even when it's uncomfortable. Next, they let God be the mediator in what isn't theirs. This one is good. They don't insert themselves into every conflict. They've learned to pray before mediating and sometimes pray instead of mediating. Okay, some of us need to take that note. You don't need to jump into every situation, every single problem. The peacemaker, the healthy peacemaker, trusts that God is capable of handling the situations that they can't. Next, they protect their own peace. They have boundaries. Say that with me, boundaries. And recognize when a relationship is consistently draining their peace rather than adding to it. And they've learned to say that graciously but firmly and clearly. The healthy peacemaker doesn't let their gift be exploited. And next, their friendships are fuller and deeper. When they start actually showing up as their full and authentic self, their opinions, their disagreements, their likes, dislikes, all of that, their friendships become richer. They become more textured. They become more involved. People don't just feel calm by them, but they actually feel known by them. And that is an upgrade in a true friendship. And lastly, they walk in shalom. Not the presence, not the absence of conflict, but the presence of peace, the presence of Christ. It's within them. It's within their friendships. It's within their community, complete, whole, and restored. And that is the peace that they were always meant to carry. Speaking of shalom, that's what God calls us all to have, shalom. And it's a Hebrew word that means wholeness, completeness, nothing missing, nothing broken. And that's the kind of peace that doesn't require you to silence yourself. It requires you to trust Him. This is one of my I don't know if it's one of my favorite verses, but one of the verses that pops up for me the most is Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Whenever I'm faced in a conflict or a dilemma, the Lord reminds me of that scripture, blessed are the peacemakers. So even though there's a conflict that comes up, my initial response might be to crash out or to go a different way. But blessed are the peacemakers reminds me that I can stand in firmness and in what he desires me to do and what I think is best in the situation, but also do it with a godly love, which sometimes it is a boundary and it is truth within that love. But notice that he called them peacemakers. He didn't say peacekeepers because, again, there's a difference, okay? There is a difference. This episode was more for me than I thought it was as I'm going back over my notes and everything. But as we wrap up, I do have a few reflection questions for you that I want you to think about. Maybe pause and journal it out, whatever you need to do as you listen. But the first one is, where am I keeping quiet to avoid conflict? And what might God be inviting me to say? Second one, what's one relationship where I've been managing the surface instead of showing up honestly? And lastly, what would it feel like to let God be the peacemaker in a situation I've been trying to control? Yeah, the peacemaker. The peacemaker. I love them. I love them. I definitely see pieces of myself in them. And if this episode spoke to you, or if you know a peacemaker friend, I need you to send this to them, okay? I need you to send this to them. Let them know that you're thinking about them, that you love them, that you're not going to take them for granted. This gives us a peek into maybe how they see the world and maybe how the Lord has fashioned them in different ways. And maybe there are parts of them that you can pull out and adapt for yourself. This is all good stuff, you guys. This is all really good stuff. So I want you to share it with them. Make sure you like, share, and tag the video, okay? And I want you to drop the word shalom in the comments if you made it this far, or your favorite takeaway of this episode, okay? So until next time, you guys, remember to stay encouraged. Bye.